listening to Occupolitics, a Harry Potter reread podcast focusing on politics in the wizarding world. I, as always, am Adri, your co-host, recovering English major, and person still getting used to these morning recordings.
I feel ya. Yeah. I'm Helene, your co-host producer, and I'm just itching to re-enter society now that I am a fully vaccinated human, so very excited.
One, very exciting to be able to make plans for the future, right?
Right, exactly.
I too am itching to re-enter society. I sound like I've been a pariah who has sought forgiveness and done penance for her crimes and is now ready to enter society again.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody in the world is like that right now.
Also, Helene, I'm just saying, San Antonio, we could work from home together and then hang out at night.
I already have, I gotta figure out what I'm doing, because so many things that I want to do and places I want to go, and absolutely no vacation time right now, so it's probably not gonna happen in 2022.
Well, also, like, I don't have a ton of vacation time anyway, so, like, there won't be any pressure for you to take any. We will be working all day and then hanging out later. Is all I'm saying, as your podcast wife.
Right. Exactly. Well, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, well, but instead of talking about our, like, podcast union/marriage, today's episode is going to be covering chapter 35 of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. This one is titled Beyond the Veil.
Right, and this is the one where the Death Eaters arrive at the Ministry and fight with the students to try and get Harry to give them the prophecy. After lots of fighting and everyone except for Harry being badly injured, the Order along with Dumbledore shows up to help, only for Sirius to be hit unexpectedly with a spell that sends him through the veil, never to be seen again.
And that is a heavy chapter indeed. But let's bring some levity to this episode by welcoming our newest patron, Healthy Trout. Welcome to the exclusive members-only club of Occupolitics, and thanks for your support.
We are so excited to have you here. Remember, if you haven't yet, send a request to join our patron-only Facebook group, because we have a lot of fun in there.
Oh, so much fun. And if you are a patron listening to this right now, you know that not only are you getting access to the normal episode, which is, free 99 for everyone involved, you also get an extra bonus segment, which is like a mini-sode, really. And this month, because May is like the Mother's Day month where we celebrate our moms and the mother figures in our lives, we thought we should be discussing mothers in the wizarding world. And this week's mom that we're discussing is the one, the only Minerva McGonagall. She does not have biological children, but that doesn't mean that she's not a mother figure. You know what I mean?
Yes, there are definitely lots of different types of mothers, both in the real world and in the wizarding world, and we're going to talk about one of the greatest this week.
Honestly, like the MVP in my eyes. Now, if you are not a patron and you enjoy our show and you're like, you know what I want? I want more of this bullshit. I want to hear more. You can totally do that for as little as $2 a month by heading over to patreon.com/Occupolitics, look at our tiers, and decide what level of support you want to provide the podcast. And not only do you get bonus content, there's also some more benefits involved.
Yeah, so the $2 a month, as Adrian mentioned, does get you access to bonus content, but there are also $5 and $10 a month tiers that are going to get you some fancy physical rewards as well every 3 months. So,
in addition to access to our lovely and funny and insightful Facebook group.
Exactly. So don't miss out. All great things. We want to see you there.
Well, that being said, I think it's time for us to go to Potter Watch and discuss some of the latest news in the United States. All right, so the only thing, well, not the only thing that's going on in politics, but like the thing I kind of wanted to talk about, Helene, I don't know about you, was the Republican Party or the Grand Old Party, however you want to call it, the Trump Party, is moving against Liz Cheney for like legitimately telling the truth.
Yeah, she's actually speaking truth to power from within the Republican Party, and for many reasons, one of the big ones I think is her being a woman. They are not taking it well.
Oh, like they're not, and they're also thinking like we can't have someone speaking out against Trump. And you're like, you know, there's this thing called freedom of speech that you guys are really big on, but I guess it doesn't apply here.
I just like I don't I don't understand why they feel like they within the Republican Party have to take a stand against her. Like what they should be doing is like if they think it's such a threat on their party that someone is saying these things about Trump, they should just let the voters decide if they want to keep her in her position of power or not. And if they do, then maybe that's a sign that, maybe Trump is kind of not important anymore.
Well, this reeks of like a mob like expulsion thing. Like the mob boss just like nods and doesn't say anything, and like Lindsey Graham and everyone else is like, you know what, we need to get rid of Liz Cheney.
It's like freaking elementary school bully on the playground type of stuff. It's so stupid.
Well, I mean, Mitt Romney was like, hey, you guys, this isn't gonna help you. This is actually on the long term going to hurt you if you keep doing this. But the GOP leadership,
Who knew that Mitt Romney was one day going to become a voice of reason for the
I know,
Republican
right?
Party?
Or Liz Cheney for that matter. But like Lindsey Graham is like, no, we got to do this because like Trump is the leader of our party, da 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 da. And I just kept
But
thinking,
like,
how many
why?
times? But like, I just kept thinking, Helene, like for reals, like how many times have we not had, like within the Democratic Party, people who disagree with uh, each other and they're pretty open about it, and there's like not this big of a production to oust them.
Yeah, like a lot of the more progressive liberal Democrats in the House and the
Yeah.
Senate do not agree with Joe Biden on lots of things, and he's our freaking president right now. So like, but they're
Well,
not
he's
saying
not.
like out with
Yeah, he's not
Joe.
throwing a temper tantrum like
Yeah,
they gotta go.
it's ridiculous. They act more and more like children every day, honestly.
Well, it's this idea, Helene, I think, of why can't we just say y'all disagree and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. I mean,
I
yeah.
I just don't understand this whole thing of like you either agree with me on every single line item of this or you're out.
Yeah, just like I said, they act more like children every single day. It's
Well, it
sad.
seems very Voldemorty to me, you know what I mean? Like if a Death Eater dares question
Sorry,
Voldemort, like
the way that you emphasized it, Voldemorty, it just made
yeah,
me like it's like some guy named Mort, or like Morty, like Marty or something.
you're welcome. Also, like, we could also call it Grindelwaldy, you know?
Yeah, Grindelwaldo. Yeah,
No, I'm just trying to make it into an adjective, okay?
no,
Like,
no, I get it.
Voldemorty.
Yeah,
So, kind of just, oh, you don't agree with like 100% of this, and you're not backing my plan that I didn't even like collectively gather data for, you're out.
yeah. It's like you said, it's a lot like the mafia basically. Like
Yeah,
it's
Which, by the way, did you know Voldemort was based on a mob boss?
That doesn't surprise me as much as it should,
Uh huh.
but
Uh huh.
it's
Uh huh.
interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah, there was this mob boss who people like feared saying even the name of that person, and that's where
Oh,
that came from.
that makes sense. There we go.
Which is why he's not very charismatic either, right? Like, there's
Right.
nothing charismatic about him because he's just like mob bosses rule by like iron fist, not charisma.
Yeah, he's gonna make you swim with the fishes.
Exactly, exactly. Just very, very much into what we think of a TV horror movie mob boss. Anyhow, do you have anything to cover this week on the news?
I don't think so. No. Not not too much has jumped out at me this week news wise. So I think this was a good discussion, but I can't think of anything else to add.
Okay, sounds good. Also, kids, please get your vaccines. The
I
vaccines
mean,
have been
yes.
actually approved for 12-year-olds, so and
Yeah.
beyond.
Oh yeah, I guess Pfizer is moving towards FDA approval. So hopefully more people, like the people who say that the reason they're not getting the vaccine is because it's not FDA approved, will actually go and get it once that happens. And yeah, like you said, they're about to get approval to vaccinate those between 12 and 15. So yeah, we're the CDC is starting to, let people know that once we reach herd immunity, which hopefully will be soon, we'll be able to open up our lives a little bit more. So just go get the vaccine if you haven't yet. But if you're listening to this podcast, I have a feeling you've probably gotten the vaccine or planning to.
Oh, yeah, I think so too. Speaking of which, and then we'll move on. I went to my first restaurant in over a year
Nice.
this weekend.
Yay.
It was amazing.
That's awesome.
I was like, I forgot how much I like eating in a restaurant.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like concerts are starting to be like rescheduled and restaurants are opening up and a lot of states are reaching their own types of herd immunity, so they're starting to let up on mask mandates in the coming weeks, and things are really starting to look like they're returning to normal, so that's really exciting.
I hope we return to normal, but also learn from, the whole like, hey, there are some people who can definitely work from home, and that eases the burden of like commuting. And also, let's make sure that our employees are not burning out at home with like these tried and true ways of working from
Yeah,
home.
no, I think that the workforce has really been changed irrevocably due to COVID.
Well, that being said, let's move on to our segment that is all about what politics you and I gleaned from this chapter,
Yes.
Hogwarts Debate Club. I'm going to go first because, that's my name is first on the document. That's the only reason.
I mean, I am happy to let you go first, lady. You go.
Just, I have very concrete reasons for this. Anyhow, when I read this chapter, I was like, this is the politics of ambush. Like an ambush is an established military tactic in which people take advantage of concealment or the element of surprise to attack unsuspecting enemy combatants from concealed positions, such as among dense underbrush or behind hilltops. Ambushes have been used consistently throughout history, from ancient to modern warfare. And what is this chapter if not like the ambush of the Golden and Silver Trio? It's orchestrated by Voldemort, but he's not there to partake in the ambush. He planned the entire thing and planted Harry's false memories, right, or false dreams. But
Hmm.
he is like, I'm not about to put myself out there in the open quite yet. This is my chess move. Lucius, you take this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely an ambush in this chapter. I agree.
What about you?
Well, I mean, so you kind of made it sound like when you were reading the chapter, like your politic of ambush kind of screamed out at you. Is that
Oh,
accurate?
yes, like, it was just like a like a flashing red light.
So it's just funny that you say that because like literally the same for me, but completely different politic. Um,
Oh,
I was
awesome.
reading the chapter. I got halfway through. I put the book down to like go get a drink of water or whatever, and I like just looked up and I was just like, politics of innocence. Like holy crap, that is what the chapter is about. And then as I read through the rest of the chapter, I was like, yep, this is 100% it. So my politic is the politics of innocence. So for most of the DA members that are there, the fight in this chapter symbolizes a big loss of innocence for them. And according to the dictionary, a loss of innocence is a common theme found in fiction and pop culture that is often seen as an integral part of coming of age. And it's usually thought of as an experience or period in a person's life that leads to greater awareness of evil, pain, and or suffering in the world around them. So I think we're reminded a lot in this chapter that the DA members, Harry, Ron, Hermione, Ginny, Luna, Neville, are children. Which I
What?
know, right? Like when you're reading the book, you kind of forget like that
Oh, for sure, yeah, I
they're
know, just
literal children, and they are like literally being attacked with their lives. Like they're in a war zone, like basically right now. And everyone except for Harry doesn't really have experience with this. They've never had their life threatened in such a straightforward way. They've never had people literally aiming to kill them. And so a lot of them kind of had a simple loss of innocence moment in this chapter. I will say Harry really did experience this the most at the end of book 4 when Cedric died. That was probably his biggest loss of innocence that we see in the series. I mean, apart from witnessing his parents being murdered in front of him as a 1-year-old, which he probably doesn't really remember. Um, but I do think that he experiences a certain loss of innocence in this chapter as well, seeing his biggest father figure murdered in front of him, and
yeah.
as an adult being able to like witness it, understand it, process it right then and there. But another part of the chapter that really screamed out innocence to me is like, it kind of had me wondering like, what is innocence? Like, what makes a person innocent? At what point does it matter anymore? So, for example, the Death Eaters are just willing to kill these children despite their innocence to achieve their goals. However, when one of the Death Eaters has their head turned into a baby in this like time jar thing, Hermione isn't willing to do the same to them. At that point, she's like, "You can't hurt a baby." It's like this guy was a full-grown dude man 3 minutes ago trying to kill you. All of a sudden, his head turns into a baby. The rest of him is still a full-grown dude man trying to kill you. But at that point, then they don't want to hurt him because he's too innocent. So like, full-grown dude man with baby head, innocent, full grown, but like 15-year-old children, not innocent because they're still planning to kill them.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
it was just really innocent, or it was really innocent. That's not what I meant to say. It was just really interesting to see kind of where each kind, group of characters draws the line. Uh, if someone's innocent, does that mean that they should, you know, be attacked versus not attacked versus, it's just interesting to me, the whole concept of innocence in this chapter.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah,
Do you think that the reason we forget that they are actual literal children as we are reading the
right.
chapter because we read this book as literal children?
Right, yeah. And I mean,
Like, do you think like if we were just reading this as adults, we would not forget that they're
I don't know. I think
children?
you also, it's so deep in their perspective, right? That when you're a
Yeah.
child, especially, a teenage child, because yes, they're 15 years old, but that doesn't make them adults. They're still children. I mean,
Yeah, their brains are still developing, like
yeah, so when
scientifically.
you are that age, all you want is to be treated like an adult. And that's
Or as a person, you
yeah,
know?
exactly. And so I think that we're so deep in Harry's perspective, we're so deep in the students' perspectives that as a reader, no matter what age you are, it comes through in the text, right? That they just want to be treated as an adult, so they act like adults, and that's why we kind of forget that they're children sometimes.
Well, I think it's also interesting in the series, right? Not only do they act as if they have adult agency, even though there are definitely laws
Mhm.
that prohibit them from exercising the full agency or even school rules, but we also get to see how flawed the adult characters are. So even if the children are flawed, we also see that the adult characters carry similar, if not the same, flaws. I'm looking at you, Sirius Black and Lupin in certain parts. And that kind of, in a way, for me, levels the playing field between children and adults.
Yeah, it's interesting because like if you look back at this chapter, kind of with that lens of these are children and the Death Eaters are adults, and like I mean, you kind of see it as it kind of seems kind of ridiculous a little bit, right? Like these full grown adult humans are attacking children and kind of failing at it. I mean,
Yeah,
yes, they
absolutely.
do succeed in almost like not almost gravely injuring about 90% of the DA members, but none of them are killed, which means that none of the Death Eaters basically reach their goal, and they're held off long enough for the Order and Dumbledore to come in and help. So like, it's I mean, there are tons of these adult Death Eaters around, like throwing their morals out the window, saying, "Hey, we're gonna kill children to help get our boss what he wants," but the children are kind of succeeding.
Yeah, the children are like, how about no?
Exactly. So it's just and at what point did these Death Eaters decide that these children no longer were innocent enough to kill? Like, why?
Well,
Why are they willing to kill them?
doesn't that remind you of the centaurs though? And their ideas of like what is, who is an innocent and who
Well, yeah, it's
isn't?
kind of like the antithesis of the centaurs, because the centaurs are not at all willing to hurt them because they are children.
Yeah, but didn't one of them say like, "Hey, these are not like children. They're turning into like this is like that gray area where we could potentially hurt them."
Yeah, but in the end, they still refuse to hurt them.
Yeah, no, I get that, but it's kind of like that question kind of just reminded me of like how centaurs differentiate.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting.
I'm not saying that Death Eaters are good people. I'm just saying
Yeah, no,
like
I
they just have
go ahead.
yeah, we're just wondering about their standards for innocence. Although, Voldemort was like, I will definitely kill a baby.
Well, yeah, Voldemort didn't care at all, but he also is a sociopath, so that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, not surprising. Anyway, let's get to the quote or the moment you thought, this is definitely innocence.
Yeah, I alluded to it earlier, but definitely the part where Hermione refused to let Harry hurt the Death Eater whose head had turned into a baby, saying, "You can't hurt a baby." It's like this guy literally tried to kill you 30 seconds ago, and only his head is a baby.
Suddenly he's Benjamin Button, and she's
Yeah.
like, no, 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 no.
So I found that really interesting. That line that was drawn there. But yeah, that was the moment in the chapter where I was like, but what is innocent? You know?
It's just because it looks like a cute little baby head,
Right, exactly. What about you? Where was the quarter moment that reminded you of Ambush?
Well, it's like every, villain giving their soliloquy of this is what we did and this is how we do it. And it says, this is Lucius Malfoy speaking. Dumbledore never told you, Malfoy repeated. Well, this explains why you didn't come earlier, Potter. The Dark Lord wondered why. When I say go, you didn't come running when he showed you the place where it was hidden in your dreams. He thought natural curiosity would make you want to hear the exact wording. And it's just like, let me explain to you what the plan was
Yeah,
and how you didn't come first, so then we had to put Sirius in your thoughts.
right. Literally the basic villain monologue of let me explain exactly what we did and how why we did it. Yeah,
Yes, let me explain to you the planning of this ambush that we are now partaking in.
exactly. Yeah.
That being said, who was the character that embodied innocence for you?
Yeah, this time it's the first time I've done this, but I couldn't pick one, so I picked a group of characters. Uh,
What?
yeah, my characters were the all the DA members, so you know Ginny, Neville, Luna, Harry, Hermione, and Ron. Um,
Uh-huh.
I feel like they all had, as I said earlier, they all experienced some sort of loss of innocence before now, but this experience really kind of forced them into adulthood. So, like for example, like you know, Luna experienced the loss of her mother. Neville experienced the torture and loss of his parents,
Yeah.
and Ginny experienced the trauma of being possessed and almost killed in the chamber. Ron and Hermione have experienced all the stuff up until this book with Harry that they experienced with him, and so like they had somewhat of a loss of innocence up until this point. They weren't, you know, oblivious children living in a world not knowing
Yeah,
what
but this is
pain.
kind of like the first real battlefield they've encountered, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So like they've experienced pain, but they never really. I feel like they hadn't really had to act like adults until this chapter.
Yeah.
Except for Harry. I mean, Harry's had to act like an adult multiple times. But
You know, when I'm listening to you talk about innocence, it also reminded me of Ron in this chapter being hit with what he was hit, and he was all like giggly and innocent and
yeah,
just speaking whatever he thought.
true, true. Yeah,
And that's like a forced innocence because that's not
yeah.
how he actually feels.
Well, I mean, same with the Death
So it
Eater and the
makes
baby head. That was a forced innocence.
exactly. So it makes everyone else's like discarding or loss of innocence in the face of this battlefield even more heightened
Right.
because of that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, what about you? What character for ambush did you pick?
So unsurprisingly, the character, the Harry, the character I thought was the embodiment of the politics of ambush was Harry, because he was the one who walks into an ambush willingly.
Right.
But instead of like panicking, as many of us would have done in the moment, and just like being like, what if I pretend to be a possum and play dead? He's like, okay, I got this. I am going to whisper instructions to Hermione, and she's going to make sure that everyone gets it, and we find the appropriate moment and counter ambush this ambush.
Yeah, and the nice thing about the book being from Harry's perspective is that he does have that moment of panic, and we do experience that as the reader. But we also get to see him overcome it too, which is really interesting.
I mean, I know this isn't really the topic we're definitely discussing, but I think that moment of when you see the panic and him working through that panic to find a solution is very helpful to a lot of us, because it's been shown kind of like whenever you read and you relate to characters like this deeply, like, I mean, we have a Harry Potter podcast, you know what I
Right.
mean? um that gives us almost the exact same skills of having lived through that moment,
Yeah. It reminds us that
because
like Harry has the capability to be presented with a stressful, scary situation like this, and he doesn't succumb to panic, and he gets through it, so maybe I can too, if that ever happens to me.
Well, in a way, we've lived through it because we've lived with Harry, right?
Right.
Through the reading of or listening of this book. Or even maybe even watching the movie. Although I feel like the reading of the book or the listening of the audiobook provides you with more emotional context for that scenario and that
Well, yeah,
situation.
I mean, like watching
Uh,
the movie, you can infer that he had that moment of panic, but you can't know for sure what he was thinking.
so yeah, so I think it's like a good kind of reminder of like, yeah, these I mean, these books are problematic, yes, but they can also be helpful.
Yeah, I agree.
So throughout the book, what made you think about innocence? Like if you tried to kind of cast it throughout the entire Order of the Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on the book as a whole, it kind of tells the story of Harry coming to terms with his loss of innocence that he experienced at the end of book 4 with Cedric's death. Realizing that he's no longer a child and he doesn't get the protections that come with that, and kind of stepping into that newly found adulthood role and embracing it and wanting to be treated like an adult. Because can you imagine how frustrating it would be to be treated like a child after you just watched a friend of yours be murdered in front of you? Like, that's like the least childish thing to experience. And
Such a complicated grief also because he was like Cedric was a rival who was friendly with him but not quite his friend. He's dating Harry's crush. Like it's also very like complex feelings involved in it.
yeah, but not once was Harry ever, you know, happy that he wasn't
He
around
wasn't happy that
anymore.
he was dead.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, I get that, but it's like it's not just any death. It's like even a like it's someone you knew and grew to admire, but you had complicated feelings about, but also like a genuinely good person, you
exactly.
know?
Yeah, exactly. And
Ooh, yeah.
it's
So for me, in Order of the Phoenix, when I think about ambush, I'm like, Umbridge is an ambush if there ever was
right.
one. Just like her,
The human embodiment of ambush.
correct. Like, her posting to Hogwarts what she does to systematically dismantle Hogwarts and turn it into like a ministry proxy school.
Right.
That was done with like element of surprise slash ambush slash like Machiavellian machinations.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, I just talked about like the most dementory of dementors of Order of the
Except
Phoenix.
that
So
she's not
let's
in this
move on to
chapter.
I fucking know. I had to bring her up even though she's not on the chapter. Helene, when you're reading this you were reading this chapter, what were you like? Ugh, even though Umbridge is not here, I fucking hate this too.
I mean, there are a lot of obvious answers for this chapter for a Dementor, like, I don't know, Sirius's death, all of our favorite characters being really badly injured, all those types of things. But
Correct,
there but
correct.
there was one moment reading it where the Ginny lover and me kind of like read it and screamed at the book, "What? Like, how could you?" And that was when Bellatrix called Ginny, quote unquote, the smallest one, and referred to her as a little girl. And I was like, wait, because when she said that, I was like, who is she talking about? At first, because I was like, who would she consider the smallest one and the little girl? And when I realized it was Ginny, I got so mad because, like, first of all, yes, Ginny is the youngest one there. She's a year younger than everybody else that's at the ministry right now. But she's probably one of the most capable fighters of the entire bunch. And I don't, just because she's a year younger, like, how, can you really tell the difference between a 14-year-old and a 15-year-old? No. Like,
Yep.
it just made me mad because Ginny deserves more respect than that, even from Bellatrix Lestrange. So, maybe not like the most deep, profound Dementor for a chapter like this one, but it definitely irritated me, so I felt like I had to bring it up.
Listen, if it irritated you, it irritated you. My Dementor is also a Bellatrix moment, but not yours.
Well, she was pretty exceptionally awful in this chapter, so.
Oh, correct, correct. So my Dementor for this chapter was when Bellatrix goes, "No, no, no," said Bellatrix. She looked transported, alive with excitement as she glanced at Harry, then back at Neville. "No, let's see how long Longbottom lasts before he cracks like his parents." Ugh.
Yeah, she even does Crucio him a little bit.
I know. Well, that was also going to be part of what I wrote down here, and I was like, that is so long, and it is so painful as a Neville lover for me to read all of that.
Yeah.
And I was like, what has he ever fucking done to you, you little
Yeah.
mean person?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard to see Neville being treated like that with how we know his parents ended up with Bellatrix and everything, but it actually kind of plays almost perfectly into my chocolate because my chocolate, and I think we might have had the same chocolate actually,
What?
was
Yes.
yeah, Neville's literal fearlessness shining through in this chapter. Like this, if there is one pivotal point in the entire series where we see why Neville was put in Gryffindor, it is this chapter. Um, you cannot say Neville is not brave. Like after reading this chapter, if you think Neville's not brave after reading this chapter, I think that you have some issues because holy crap, that boy is fearless in this chapter.
I agree.
I mean, he's presented with literally the person who tortured his parents into insanity, who gave him the childhood that he has had without his parents in his life because of her, and he stands up to her, and he is not afraid of her, which is just crazy, crazy awesome, but insane.
Yes. He's the best. So, last week, we asked our listeners the following question: what room in the Department of Mysteries would you most want to explore and why? And we got a bunch of answers, dude.
Yeah, we got some good ones this week. So I'll go through and let you know what some of our listeners thought. So at Megas on Twitter said that dark with planets room. What does the Wizarding World know about outer space that we don't? With like 10 question marks, which I mean,
Also, like,
right.
yeah, like, where are the aliens? Is what
Exactly.
I want to
Yes,
know.
and our friend of the pod, guest host Rex on Instagram also said space is fucking awesome. So yeah, rocket number 9 take off to the planet Venus, which I'm guessing is some sort of reference that I don't understand, but he seems to be referring to the space room as well in his answer.
I love it.
Do you get the reference? I don't get the reference.
I have no idea.
I thought he was going to make a reference.
Over my head.
I thought he was going to make reference to Team Rocket in Pokemon because that makes sense into the Rex that I know, but that one just doesn't make any sense to me. Sorry, Rex, if you want to tell me what that reference was to, feel free to text me.
Oh, I know what it is. Oh my gosh.
What?
It's Lady Gaga lyrics.
Oh, okay. That's on brand.
Lady Gaga.
It's on brand. All right. Well, we had a couple other responses. At Noma Lily on Twitter said, the love room, Dumbledore mentions it. I would find it fascinating to study what love is and how people can experience love / how it is created. Love is such a powerful thing, not only in Harry Potter, and Dumbledore is correct when he says it's a mysterious thing. And everybody else who answered kind of agreed with Noma Lily on Twitter, and so the love room was a pretty popular answer as well as the space room. So our editor Allison comments on it on Instagram saying the love room. She said it's such a powerful force in Harry Potter, and I'm curious what else it is capable of in the Wizarding World. And tested iPotter _ podcast on Instagram said, Norberta, would like to explore the love room or the time room. So between the two. And then finally, our patron Lucy on our special secret Patreon only Facebook group said the spicy love room, because we call it Love Spicy Yes. Um, it is.
Because love is spicy.
According to a quote from the author, and then she linked where she found the quote. One of the things the room contains is witches and wizards taking amartentia and studying the effects. Amartentia is a problematic potion, as we all know. So being able to see the ramifications of taking it in a safe and controlled environment might be interesting. Also, if the potion is something that needs to be kept behind a knife-melting door, aka love is spicy, why did Slughorn bring a cauldron of it to a classroom full of teenagers and half-blood prince?
I would say probably because Slughorn does not display the best judgment of character, aka he told Voldemort how to create
That is
Horcruxes.
a very good point. Yep.
Again, this is where like adults like step in it and you're like, oh hey, they're not that different from the kids.
Right. So, Adri, what is your answer to this question? What room would you like to explore and why?
I would love to explore the time room because, as we know from Matthew McConaughey, time is a flat circle, which is a reference to an HBO show. But I digress. I think I would really love to see kind of like time cycles and to see if there is like any like theory on like matter creation and like matter can't be created but it can change, so like the
Mm-hmm.
changes in matter. um so I'm going very like chemistry physics into this, and also
Okay.
like the idea that time is occurring at all times, so like the past and the present and the future are happening at all times, but how we experience time is limited to just the present, for for reasons so that we can't like overload our brain. But just kind of like those time, like the theories on time and why and how time moves and how you can move through time, that would be really interesting.
Okay. Yeah.
What about you?
I I had a really hard time choosing because I honestly want to go with all of them, which is probably why I say I would want to be an unspeakable if I was in the Wizarding world because I just want to know everything that's happening.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, same here, same here. I'm very nosy.
but
I'm very
but we
nosy.
exactly, but we made our listeners choose one, so I will choose one. And I think as a psychologist, like I mean, as a psychology major and someone who's really seriously interested in like why people do what they do and all of that fun stuff, I think I have to go with, and also this one wasn't mentioned at all yet, but I think I have to go with the brain room. Um, I know I want to know like what they're studying. Are they studying why humans are the way they are? Are they studying, is it just like neuroscience? Because maybe not. Maybe I wouldn't be as excited about it if it was just like the study of the physical aspect of the brain and what all the parts do and what neurons are. Because like that was probably my least favorite part of my psychology degree was learning about that stuff.
Ooh, I wonder if they could plug in a brain to like a TV, you know what I'm saying? And look
Yeah,
at the memories and the decisions and the.
yeah. I mean, like, are they studying the potential of the human brain? Like, are they studying like what humans could be capable of? That we aren't capable of yet because of the limitations of our physical brain or whatever it is. I think it would be really interesting to get a look into the brain room and kind of figure out what they're doing there. And that's like the one we kind of hear the least about too, I guess. I don't know. We don't. All we know is that there's this brain that like starts attacking Ron. We don't know anything about it other than that.
I yeah, that sounds like a really good room for you to look into, as long as like you said, it's not like neuroscience.
But I feel like the witches and wizards aren't super interested in like science anyway, so maybe it won't be about that. I don't know.
It strikes me like the author herself is not that interested, but that is
Uh,
a topic for another
right.
day.
Exactly. Right.
All right, so thank you all for responding to our question. Loved all your responses. Also loved Helene's response.
Thank you. I loved yours as well.
You just have to say that because I'm here. Now, for this week, because we talked a ton about innocence and what makes the loss of innocence such a trope, we want to ask you what moment in the series you think defines Harry's loss of childlike innocence. Like, when was the moment where he was just like, yep, lost my childlike innocence? Nothing's ever going to be the same.
Yes, we want to know. Let us know your thoughts. There are lots of moments in the series that people could choose, I think. So let us know what you think.
Yeah, you're going to have to tell us why, though, because,
Of
like
course.
Helene said, there are a ton of moments to choose from. And we gotta figure out why you thought that that was the real moment of like that shifted how he views the world.
Exactly.
Let's stretch and breathe deeply in and out because we are on the cool down phase of this podcast. If you are not a patron, we are going to be talking about the media we've been consuming. But if you are a patron, remember, after, we say goodbye, there's like special segment for you. Just, FYI. Um,
Stick around.
Stick around. Don't you dare stop us. But also you can
I thought
pause
I
it
thought
if
you were
you're
gonna
really busy.
I thought you were gonna say, "Don't move that dial." Like
Well, that too. Don't
old
touch
timey.
that dial.
Yeah.
But also you can pause it if you're like super busy and, you need to come back to us. We'll be here. Helene, what have you been watching this week?
Yes, per your suggestion, I started Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist because I finished my rewatch of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Uh,
I'm already at season 2. I finished season 1 over the weekend.
Girl, what?
Um, I didn't have anything to do on Sunday. Like I had plans on Saturday, but I didn't have anything to do on Sunday, so I just watched it for like 8 hours. Probably even more than that, to be honest. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I love the characters. The cast is awesome. The songs are fun most of the time, but it's also really touching. And I don't know, it's the whole storyline with her father really got to me because I don't know how if our listeners know this, but I'm sure Adrian knows this. Like I'm very close with my father. He's my favorite person, my best friend, and
Mm-hmm. Things
so
with
any sort of
fathers always fuck me up.
yeah, anything with losing a father or a father being ill or anything like that really like accesses my biggest, deepest, darkest fears of losing my father. So those types of storylines really do get to me. And so yeah, I mean that show really touched
Yeah,
my heart with that. And
it's a
it's
show. I mean,
been
it's a
good.
show about loss and a
Yeah.
specific kind of loss because one of the characters lost their dad to suicide, and she's losing her dad, but like incrementally.
Yeah, to a
And
neurological disease.
yes,
Yeah.
and so it's about sudden and incremental loss and how there's no right way or wrong way to grieve and
Yeah,
navigate your grief.
it's kind of telling the story that grief is universal in some aspects and extremely unique in others. Everybody
Yeah.
processes grief their own way, but there are ways for people who've gone through similar types of grief and loss to help each other, even though everybody's experience is unique.
Well, it's like WandaVision, but like with musical numbers.
Exactly. It really is. Except that she doesn't have the power to bring her loved one back from the dead, but she has the power to hear people's innermost thoughts
Heart
through song.
songs. Yes, like
Yes.
she calls them the heart songs.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Uh, it is such a good show.
yeah, I'm
What
really
what
enjoying it.
episode on season 2 are you on?
I literally last night, right before I went to bed, I got to the episode where my baby beautiful man Felix Mallard is introduced as a new character in season 2. So I think it's like episode 4 or 5.
Okay, got it, got
Um,
it, got it. They also on season 2 have this character who play this actor who plays Guillermo in like What We Do in the Shadows TV show.
is it George?
Yes,
Okay.
because
I don't
he's
watch What We Do in the Shadows, so I didn't know for sure, but
let me
I
double
just
check what
guessed.
his name is. Harvey Guillen. Yes. So Harvey Guillen is an amazing comedic actor. He can also sing, which I did not know about this until, Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. But he also plays Guillermo on What We Do in the Shadows, the TV show. Also, highly recommend if you have not seen What We Do in the Shadows, the movie, which was like an indie film, directed by Taika Waititi, and also he is one of the actors in the film. That is the basis for the TV show, which focuses on other vampires, like in the United States, rather than
Okay.
vampires in New Zealand. But I feel like you will get like the true experience if you watch the movie first, which is kind of like if someone was making a documentary about vampires and then like the TV show version of this, which is in Staten Island, which has Harvey Guillen as the wonderful Guillermo.
Nice. Well, I mean, another show to add to my list. My next one up after Zoe's is Person of Interest. My sister's been trying to get me to watch that for a while, so
I would watch Person of Interest again with you because
I've heard great things.
I love it so
Yeah.
hard. You have no idea. I love that show so hard.
Yeah, and I think it's finally like available for streaming again. I think that there's a point where it was like not available on any streaming platforms, and now I think it's back. So, um, as soon as I finish or get caught up with Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, Person of Interest is next. So.
Can't wait to talk about this with you. Well, the media I've been consuming is not a show or anything this week. It is an article from Slate, and it's titled "The Crucifixion of Courtney Stodden." For those of you who don't know, Courtney Stodden recently came out as non-binary, so I'll be using their preferred pronouns. So they them. At age 16, Stodden was groomed by and then married to Doug Hutchinson, a character actor who was then 51 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Their parents consented to the marriage, and the media was less than kind because, of course, um, teenage, uh, you know, purportedly teenage girls like they identified as a girl at the time are the demographic that we most like to shit on and creep on. And they said some stuff about how this was an abusive marriage, obviously grooming, um, that Doug was very charming with their family, so their family consented to the marriage because of like the charming thing, and like they had been in beauty pageants, so like their mom was like a little bit weirded out by and their dad as well about the whole Doug thing, but because Doug was such a charmer like many abusers are, they thought the parents thought, okay, I guess. And Courtney believed that their parents' assent to the marriage meant that, yeah, Doug is an okay person. And I'm going to read something here. He would tell me that he lost everything for me. He would always say, I gave everything up for you, my managers, my agents, my family. So you owe me. Sometimes I would hear people say, I think he used you to get attention, get on shows, make money. And I would say, no, no, he lost everything for me. I owe him. But that's the grooming. That's what he told me, and that's not the truth. It's most likely the other way around. He pushed me to go on shows and he controlled all the finances. It was almost like Britney Spears' conservatorship. He referred to me a few times as the golden goose. I would also add that he made Courtney do a porn video with Vivid Entertainment, on top of pushing them to go on all these shows and like Big Brother UK and all of this other stuff.
Okay, so I was gonna say, am I supposed to know? I mean, this person doesn't sound familiar to me. Is this a person, a
It
celebrity?
was, so it was a big thing back in 2011,
Okay.
but, you know, our
I mean,
age
all I
difference
have,
strikes again.
yeah, all I have to say is sounds like textbook emotionally abusive and sometimes physically abusive relationships. So fun.
Well, it says, that he never okay, so I'm gonna read another passage here. "He never hit me, and a lot of the reason why was because the paparazzi were always outside our house, but he would be psychologically and mentally abusive."
I would.
Um
The reason I said physically abusive is the porn video
Oh, no,
because
no, yeah, that's a form of physical abuse and coercion,
yeah,
but I believe Courtney doesn't see it that way just yet. It's taking them a long time to even process this, right, as
I
abuse.
mean, fair. I think that's pretty normal, pretty standard
They are
for abuse
26 years
victims.
old right now,
So
um,
sad.
and it took them a long time to get divorced from Doug, because obviously,
Hmm.
and apparently Doug was already grooming someone else in the UK when they were, getting separated. So we're looking at like a child predator. So yeah, I mean, Courtney Stodden was crucified and vilified in the media or made fun of,
Hmm.
especially when they were, 16, 17. And then, once someone turns 18, if that person is viewed as a woman, then they are for fair game, even more for comments and threats. And just the entire article made me very sad and very conscientious of, you know, kind of made me think
We
like, was I in my small way participating in this? Or
it's just a good reminder that you never know what other people are going through behind the
yeah,
scenes,
I just remember
even
at the time,
celebrities.
being like really grossed out with Doug and her parents, but not her. But at the same time, I also know that I may be, complicit in some way by even reading articles describing her, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of something that comes along with the consumption of celebrity news and you know just how we as humans treat celebrities and participate in their narratives publicly.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
just something to keep in mind that we we never fully know what's going on in a person's life, even if their life is quote unquote like public. We still don't know.
Well, perception is everything, right? The
Right.
spin can be completely different from reality, and how someone is covered is not the same as how that person experiences life. Even if they're not celebrities, like how you see someone else is not indicative of who they are, really.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, that is it for today's episode. Please join us next week as we talk about chapter 36 of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, titled The Only One He Ever Feared.
Hell yeah, Dumbledore chapter.
Woo woo!
My boy, Dumble. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this conversation, please take a second to give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to this podcast right now. It really, really helps us a lot. We enjoy reading the feedback, and it helps people find our podcast who might not otherwise have found it. So we appreciate anything you can do to help us reach that goal.
Yeah, it does that thing that algorithms do where it shows it to other people, like podcasts you might be interested in.
Exactly.
So please do that. Thank y'all.
We want to be that podcast that other
we
people might be
we
interested in.
definitely want to be that podcast that shows up at the bottom of every podcast player being like, if you like this podcast, you might also enjoy this other podcast.
Exactly. We want to take over the world.
Yes. With as Dora the Explorer in me would say, cinco estrellas por favor. But until then, politics managed. Support this show by going to patreon.com/occhiopolitics. Our patrons keep this show going. You can find us online at occhiopolitics.com, and we are at Occhiopolitics on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can email us your thoughts at info@occhiopolitics.com. Leave us a voicemail at 915-996-1699, and you might just hear yourself on the podcast. Adriana Wilson is the founder and creative director of the podcast. Helene Karp is the producer and social media manager. Allison Pullman is the audio wizard and editor who makes us sound so good. Cover art and physical rewards are designed by Adriana Wilson. The views expressed by the hosts and guests are expressly their own and not representative of their employers or associates. Occiopolitics is part of the MuggleNet family of podcasts.